What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel for another episode of the Ask Me Anything series. I know you guys are used to these coming out on Mondays, but better late than never. We have a lot of great questions in this episode. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to every single one of you who took the time to come up with a question and leave it on the post. Even the ones that don't get featured in the video, just know I read every single one. I appreciate all of them. You guys make this series so much fun for me to do. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. The first question we have comes from Robert Smith, who says, with the success of Doc on the top line with Caulfield and Suzuki, do you see him reaching 65 plus points this year? Well, he's currently on pace for 70 plus points, which I don't expect him to score at that pace all season long. I do think that's going to come down a little bit. 65 points, I mean, I don't think it's impossible. That line has looked fantastic together, but if I had to make a prediction, realistically, I think Kirby Dach finishes the season, if that line stays healthy and they stay together, around like 50 to 55 points, which is still fantastic for a guy whose previous career high was 26. That trade is already looking great for the Canadians. Even though this is Kirby Dach's fourth NHL season, a lot of people forget that this guy's still only 21 years old. He was drafted in the same draft as Caulfield, and Marty St. Louis looks like a genius right now for shifting Kirby Dach to the wing, playing him with some other young talented players. He just looks so much more comfortable in this role as opposed to, playing third or fourth line center. The next question we have comes from Florida Man, who says, with 9 goals in 20 games, Alex Ovechkin is on a 37 goal pace through the 82 game season, which is his worst goal per game pace since 2017. Is Ovechkin finally slowing down? And also really appreciate the support. I honestly wouldn't even say Ovechkin is slowing down just yet. I mean, a 37 goal pace for a 37-year-old is still really good, and you have to think, like, when he scored 33 goals back in the 2016-17 season, a lot of people probably thought he was slowing down back then, and then obviously he rattled off, a 49 goal and a 51 goal season after that. And you also have to keep in mind that the Washington Capitals are really struggling right now. They're without two key forwards in Tom Wilson and Nicholas Backstrom. Those are two guys that Ovechkin actually often plays on a line with when they're healthy. So you have to think that if the Washington Capitals were at full strength right now, had a couple more offensive weapons in the lineup, other guys like Connor Brown and TJ Oshie are out currently as well, then Ovechkin's stats would probably look a little bit different, because then teams wouldn't just be able to solely focus on shutting him down. Next up, this question comes from Yabba Dabba Doo, who says, with the Sabres having another horrific November, what do you think needs to be changed in the organization to keep this pattern from happening again? I personally believe it may legitimately be a curse on the team, and also really appreciate the support. Yeah, I'm honestly really disappointed with how the Sabres season has took a turn for the worse yet again. This is now like the third or fourth season in a row where they've started hot, showed so much promise, and then not only just came back down to earth a little bit, they completely fall off the face of the earth. They've now lost 8 games in a row, and this is after, I think in the most recent Ask Me Anything episode, I said that I feel like this year's Sabres team is different. They feel different than the past couple seasons versions of the Buffalo Sabres. I said how I thought that at that time what the Sabres were doing potentially could be sustainable for the entire season. Maybe they finish between 85 and 90 points and are competitive all year long, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. And as far as what does the organization have to do to break this pattern, I know it sounds kind of stupid to say because of how long this rebuild has been, but I feel like we still have to be patient, because you got to remember, like, they just traded Jack Eichel last season, and to me at least, that was kind of like the Buffalo Sabres restarting the rebuild. Not completely from scratch, because obviously they still have a ton of amazing pieces, but let's be real, the Buffalo Sabres are still quite a ways away from being, I feel like, a legit playoff threat. Obviously for Sabres fans, it has to be really frustrating, especially this season, because like I said, I honestly felt like this year's Sabres team did feel different. I didn't think there was going to be, a massive losing streak that just completely derails their season, but here we are. In the end though, I do really feel like the Buffalo Sabres are still headed in the right direction. I think as an organization, they're in an okay spot right now, and I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world to add yet another top 10 pick to this core of Tage Thompson, Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power, JJ Peterka, Dylan Cousins, Jack Quinn. Moving along now to the next question, how big of a factor do you think strength of schedule is when it comes to evaluating teams at this point in the year? Teams like the Oilers and Flames have had a really tough schedule, while teams like the Devils, Wild, and Bruins have had easier schedules in comparison. It's not the end-all be-all, but when winning teams have Mickey Mouse schedules thus far, it's something to consider. You're absolutely right about that. When you're evaluating teams this early on in the season, you have to think about the strength of their competition. Even me as a Red Wings fan, like, sure, Detroit has had a good start to the this season. They're currently in a playoff spot, but they've had probably one of the easiest schedules in the league so far. But on the other hand, teams like the Devils and Bruins, I really don't think we should take away from what they're doing right now just because maybe they haven't had the most difficult schedule in the world. They've both still had historic starts to the season. They can only play the teams in front of them, the teams that they're scheduled to play. There's also some situations where teams may have a pretty easy schedule to start a season, but they don't take advantage of it. So while yes, strength of schedule does matter when evaluating teams at this point in the season, like you said, it certainly isn't the end all be all. Next up from David C, what do you think of the Seattle Kraken plan with Shane Wright? They voluntarily benched him for 5 games so that he could be sent down to the AHL for 2 weeks. I know it's going to be good for him to play actual meaningful minutes, but this method seems weird. Any thoughts? And also really appreciate the kind words. Basically what I gather from the way Seattle has handled Shane Wright to start with the season is they don't think he's quite good enough and ready to play a full-time role in the NHL, but they also feel like he's probably too good at this point to play in the CHL. So while yes, it definitely hasn't been the traditional way of handling a top prospect, at the very least it seems like the Seattle Kraken have a plan. I do think it's great for Shane Wright now that he's going to be able to go down to the AHL and play some meaningful minutes. I feel like this is a guy who already at this point has been sitting on his behind way too long and not playing games. I really feel like that is the worst thing you can do with top prospects, have them just sitting there not playing. You want these guys playing as many games as possible, putting them in as many different situations as you possibly can, and I think Shane Wright's going to get a really good opportunity to play in pretty much all situations in the AHL. Moving on now to the next question. This one comes from Griffin, who says, with the incredible start the Devils are on, is it too early to consider them a dark horse cup contender? And also, I appreciate the support. I really don't think it's too early to consider them a dark horse cup contender, even just a, not even dark horse cup contender, but a legit Stanley Cup contender. I don't think you just fluke your way to 13 straight wins. This team really is the real deal, not even when you just look at their record, but especially when you dive deeper into it, look at their advanced numbers. Their shot differential is crazy. Their expected goal differential per 60 minutes is insane as well. They're not just winning games on most nights, they're usually dominating the opponent at 5-on-5. It's really crazy to think that this is the same team that started the season 0-2. There was fire Lindy chants in their home opener, and now look at where they're at. There's already been sorry Lindy chants. I made a video breaking down the Devils' hot start to the season 2 weeks ago, and they still haven't lost a game since then. This has been an unbelievable run. This next question comes from Charles, who says, with the Senators' decent start to the season, but then a huge drop-off, losing 7 games in a row and not looking any better, do you think it might be time for them to consider getting in on the Connor Bedard sweepstakes? And also really appreciate the support. Well, I don't really think it's up to them really considering at this point. I think they are already in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes, but I don't really necessarily think that's a bad thing. The whole Josh Norris injury really kind of derailed their entire season, I feel like. And I also feel like a lot of people got a little bit too ahead of themselves with all the big moves the Ottawa Senators made in the offseason, bringing in Alex DeBrincat and Claude Giroux. Yeah, they improved the team, but this is still a team in a rebuild, I would say. I don't think they're quite ready to take that next step, but even if they don't finish with the worst record in the league and give themselves the best odds at Connor Bedard, even like a top 3 pick in this year's draft, I feel like you're almost guaranteed to get a franchise-altering superstar caliber player. Obviously, a lot of the attention goes to Connor Bedard, and rightfully so. He's going to be the first overall pick, but there's still guys like Matvei Michkov. Adam Fantilli is absolutely lighting up the NCAA for the University of Michigan. He's got 23 points in 12 games. He's going to be a beast. The next question we have comes from Wade Harms, who says, with one of your preseason breakout picks being one of your disappointments thus far, New Hook, it made me curious, what do you feel like your worst take was? Basically, which take of yours aged the worst? And also really appreciate the support. Looking back at my preseason predictions and stuff like that is one of my favorite things to do. I actually made a couple of videos last year where I've reacted to some of my older predictions. I'm definitely planning on doing that again this year, but I would say my worst take so far has to be just the Metro Division in general. Predicting it, I did terribly. I predicted that the Devils would finish 7th in the Metro, only ahead of the Philadelphia Flyers, although I don't really feel too bad about that one because I feel like I'm not alone here. I think the Devils have kind of made everybody look stupid so far, but another one of my Metro Division predictions, I said Columbus would be competing for a playoff spot, so obviously that has not aged well so far. So just off the top of my head, those are definitely 2 pretty bad ones there. Next up, this question comes from D&D Fear, who says, how do you feel about Florida's playoff chances? Are they still a lock, or will they fall out of favor and miss the playoffs? They're now 9-8-2 after losing to Columbus and Calgary this weekend. Yeah, the Columbus loss especially was a really bad one. I still do feel pretty good about Florida's playoff chances. I'm not writing them off by any means, but I definitely have my concerns. I think at this point you kind of have to hand over the starting goaltender key to Spencer Knight. You just don't know what you're going to get get from Sergei Bobrovsky. He has been so inconsistent this season. I do still have my questions about their blue line, even with Aaron Ekblad back healthy now. I don't think they have a lot of depth back there, but again, I do still feel pretty good about Florida's playoff chances, although I don't feel good about them finishing like as a top 3 team in the division. I think if they get in, it's likely going to be in a wildcard spot. The next question we have comes from Howard Sharp, who says, who do you think is the better player, Jason Robertson or Kirill Kaprizov? I'm not sure why, but it's been a debate lately. Well, I think the reason why is just because they were rookies in the same season. They were, 1 and 2 in the Calder Trophy race when Kaprizov ultimately won the Calder. That's just kind of what happens when you have, rookies battling out for the Calder. I feel like they're kind of attached at the hip for the rest of their career. Obviously, there was the whole Matthews and Laine debate, even though Matthews obviously kind of ran away with that. Even right now, people compare Moritz Seider with Trevor Zegras, who's better there. Right now, though, I feel like you have to go with Jason Robertson. The dude is an absolute superstar. He's one of the best players in the NHL without a doubt. He's currently tied for 3rd in league scoring. The only 2 players with more points than Robertson are Draisaitl and McDavid. This guy's unbelievable. He just keeps getting better and better. I feel like he's honestly still kind of underrated at this point. People don't really give him enough credit for just how good he really is. He's not just one of the better young players in the league. Like I said, he's one of the absolute best players in the NHL. Next up, this question comes from Redeem, who says, who'd be the award winners if the season ended today? This is an interesting question. For the Hart Trophy, I definitely feel like it would be between McDavid and Jason Robertson. I mean, McDavid's scoring at like a 150 point pace, something ridiculous like that, but it isn't leading to a ton of team success. Edmonton is 10-9 right now. They're not in a playoff spot, while Jason Robertson's team currently 1st in the Central Division, so I definitely feel like it would be between those two for the Hart. For the Norris Trophy, feel like I shouldn't even have to say here, but Erik Karlsson, we've gushed on and on about how good he's been to start this season, so I feel like if the season ended today, he would be the unanimous Norris Trophy winner. The Vezina Trophy, I feel like definitely between Hellebuck and Linus Ullmark. I feel like Hellebuck has probably carried the Jets and been a little bit more pivotal to their success than Ullmark has been to the Bruins' success, but I might lean Ullmark right now just because, I mean, he's leading the league in wins, goals against average, and save percentage. He's been superhuman to start this season. His numbers are insane. And I'll do one more here, the Calder Trophy. I feel like the Calder race this year has been a ton of fun. No one has really ran away with it just yet, but I would still lean Matty Beniers, who's got 11 points so far on the season, just because, I mean, he's leading all of rookies in scoring, and he's arguably one of the absolute best players on a playoff team right now. He's playing some tough minutes, some tough matchups as a top 6 center as a rookie, and he's done really well, so I would definitely lean Matty Beniers. Next up, this question comes from Del Tago, who says, what is Ottawa going to do with Alex Formenton, the last RFA player holding out? Yeah, this isn't really getting talked about a lot. I haven't heard anything like from any insiders really giving updates on this. I feel like it's just really quiet, and given the way the Senators are playing right now, they could definitely use a guy like Formenton in the lineup. Obviously, he's a great skater, really fast, almost scored 20 goals last season, had 18 in 79 games. He's still only 23 years old. The last thing you want to do for a player who's at this point in his career is just have him sitting out and not playing any games, so Ottawa probably wants to get this resolved as soon as possible. I'm really not sure what the holdup is because they have the cap space. You can't imagine Formenton's going to come in at more than like $4 million a season, which is about how much cap space the Senators have right now. It's like 4.2. I'd say Formenton probably going to come in like the $2.5 to $3 million range. So again, I don't know what the holdup is. I haven't heard any reports giving any updates on this, so I'm really interested to see what happens, and I'm really curious as to why it's so quiet and why no one's talking about it. And now for the final question of today's episode, this one comes from Awesome Zach, who says, what's up with the crazy winning and losing streaks of teams? The Blues lost 8 straight, then immediately won 6 straight, Buffalo won 5 straight, and then lost 8 straight, and then we are seeing teams like the Devils and Bruins just being incredible. Yeah, I feel like this season, more than any other season that I can remember, there's been a lot of streaks, winning streaks and losing streaks, which is kind of surprising because there is so much parity in the NHL. Teams can beat teams on any given night, so this is kind of out of the ordinary. I'm really not sure why this is happening, but I'm not complaining because I feel like it has made for a really entertaining start to the season, and it makes for some good content as well. So that is going to wrap up today's episode of the Ask Me Anything series. Like I said at the beginning, huge thank you to every single one of you who took the time to come up with a question and leave it on the post. You guys really make this series what it is. If you guys enjoyed and you want to see another Ask Me Anything episode next week, be sure to leave a like on the video. That is the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if you have not already and this is your first time checking out the channel, please be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want more NHL content like this all season long, and I will see you all in the next one.